Variety has just dropped a bombshell investigation into Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's falling out with Netflix.
The most revealing part of this story is not any single allegation, it is where the story is coming from. For years, Harry and Meghan had a reliable defense whenever criticism showed up. The voices attacking them were dismissed as hostile tabloids, palace leaks, or people with an agenda. That shield worked because it kept the argument simple. They were not failing, they were being targeted. But that argument gets much harder to hold when the pressure is coming from Variety. And that is why this moment matters. Variety is not some fringe gossip site. In Hollywood, it is one of the trade publications that helps shape industry perception. When a story lands there, people read it less like scandal and more like a signal, not proof of everything, but a sign of what insiders are willing to say out loud. That is the shift hanging over Harry and Meghan right now. According to Variety, after roughly 5.5 uneven years with Netflix, real doubt is setting in around their future in streaming. The article describes a partnership that never fully became what it was supposed to be. Big deal. Big expectations. Not nearly enough lasting output. And that matters because the original promise was enormous. When Harry and Meghan landed in California in 2020, they were not just another celebrity couple looking for a production deal. They were treated like a rare kind of cultural asset. Every major media company reportedly wanted a piece of them. The obvious prize was access, the royal exit, the untold footage, the inside version of the break from the monarchy. Netflix won that fight, reportedly with a deal somewhere in the tens of millions. And with that came a very clear expectation. This was supposed to become a major content relationship. Instead, what followed looks, from the outside, like a pattern of misalignment. First came the Oprah interview in 2021, a massive cultural event that reportedly irritated Netflix because some insiders say the company did not get adequate warning. The Sussex side denies that and says Netflix knew, with lawyers involved as standard practice. That denial matters. But even with the pushback, the larger point still stands. Again and again, the couple's biggest headlines seemed to erupt outside the system that had paid heavily to package and distribute their story.
I feel sorry for Harry because I think that nothing he says or does is going to be the right thing.
Can see the body language for themselves. You know, it is a kind of putting the hand on as if to say, hold on, let me answer this.
Then came Spare. According to the reporting, Netflix was once again left scrambling around timing, trying to position the Harry and Meghan docuseries before the memoir hit. Some insiders say the schedule was adjusted for exactly that reason. Others dispute it. But either way, the same issue kept surfacing. Too many moving parts. Too much uncertainty. Too many competing centers of control. That is a problem in any business relationship. In Hollywood, it becomes a serious one, because this industry will forgive almost anything except confusion without payoff. Chaos can be tolerated when the results are huge. When the hits are undeniable, people look the other way. But when the output is thin, when the strategy keeps shifting, and when the returns start looking modest, every old frustration suddenly matters more. That seems to be the story now. Variety's reporting says Netflix insiders have grown tired of hearing different versions of the same royal exit narrative. It describes underwhelming momentum around projects, mixed feelings about With Love, Meghan, and even talk that the overall partnership could slowly fade rather than end with some dramatic public breakup. One insider reportedly summed up the internal mood as, "We are done." That is the kind of quote that spreads because it captures something deeper than a ratings debate. It suggests fatigue. And yet even here, the story is not clean. There is pushback inside the same reporting. Another source says the numbers for With Love, Meghan were roughly in line with comparable lifestyle programming, which argues against calling it a total failure. Netflix itself publicly praised Archewell as thoughtful and collaborative. That contrast is part of why this story has so much traction. Privately, the article paints strain. Publicly, the company projects calm. Hollywood often works exactly like that. The tension gets sharper when Ted Sarandos enters the picture. For years, Sarandos was seen as one of the most important allies in the Sussex orbit. He and his wife, Nicole Avant, moved in the same Montecito world. There was a sense that Harry and Meghan were not just clients at Netflix. They had real access at the top. So when insiders start saying Sarandos is losing patience, people notice. Variety even included a claim that he once would not take a call with Meghan unless a lawyer was present. That allegation was forcefully denied. Netflix called it inaccurate. Meghan's attorney called it blatantly false and said she regularly communicates with Sarandos directly, even visiting his home. So again, this is not a settled fact. It is a disputed claim. But its presence in a publication like Variety tells you how much the atmosphere around them has changed. People are now willing to circulate stories that would have once seemed untouchable. And that change did not come from nowhere. The Netflix relationship had warning signs for a long time. The Harry and Meghan docu-series eventually arrived, but even that project reportedly ran into turbulence, including a director leaving and Liz Garbus being brought in. Then came claims of tension during editing, with reports that Meghan wanted some material removed out of concern that it might upset the royal family after Queen Elizabeth II's death. Another theory inside the reporting suggested Netflix feared key revelations were being held back, so Harry's memoir would still have exclusive value. Netflix denied that version of events. Still, taken together, the pattern is clear. Delay, recalibration, conflicting accounts, public denials, more whispers. Then the broader industry mood started to cool. Spotify ended its deal with the couple, and Bill Simmons publicly called them grifters, a line that spread instantly because it was unusually blunt. Pearl, the planned animated series, was scrapped. Nearly 6 years into the Netflix deal, there was still no completed scripted project to show for it. WME was supposed to look like a major stabilizing move for Meghan, but the reporting suggests key figures stepped back from direct involvement sooner than expected. Archewell executive Ben Browning moved on. Multiple projects failed to build momentum. Documentary ideas did not take off. Sales agents and filmmakers were reportedly not rushing to collaborate. At a certain point, that stops looking like bad luck and starts looking like a credibility problem. By 2025, the strategy appears to have shifted again. With scripted ambitions stalled, attention moved more directly toward Meghan as a solo brand. Sarandos even said she was underestimated in terms of cultural influence, which sounded like Netflix testing a simpler thesis. Maybe the larger production empire was not materializing, but Meghan herself could still drive consumer and lifestyle success. That is where, with Love, Meghan and her broader brand efforts became important. But even there, the signals seem mixed. Variety describes Netflix stepping back from deeper involvement in her lifestyle venture. It reports that later batches of With Love, Meghan episodes underperformed the earlier ones, and that the show was positioned to continue more as seasonal specials than as a fully renewed centerpiece. The source material also points to claims that large amounts of product tied to the venture were left over, with explanations from spokespeople and insiders that such sample handling is normal. Maybe it is, but in perception terms, it still feeds the same narrative. Too much launch energy, not enough durable impact. Then the story moved from performance questions into something even more combustible, their personal and professional dynamic. Variety reported claims that Meghan sometimes talks over Harry in meetings, reframes what he is saying before he finishes, and uses small physical cues before stepping in. Her attorney responded that the framing is misogynistic and designed to push the old stereotype of a controlling wife. Harry backed that denial and said the claims are completely false. That rebuttal is not a side note. It goes to the heart of the whole fight. Because at this point, Harry and Meghan are not just pushing back against a bad article. They are trying to define what kind of criticism this is. Is it legitimate industry reporting about a troubled business partnership? Or is it gendered storytelling dressed up as insider access? That is now central to the argument. There were similar disputes over Meghan's reported work style, including claims that she would step away from Zoom calls for long periods after being upset by something said in the meeting. Her legal team answered that directly too, saying she works from home while raising young children, and that stepping away during calls is neither unusual nor scandalous. That response is reasonable on its face. But the bigger issue is not one Zoom meeting. It is that every new report now drops into an environment where the benefit of the doubt is weaker than it used to be. And that may be the most important change of all. Vanity Fair had already published troubling claims about staff stress. The Hollywood Reporter had already pointed to turnover and described the couple as difficult to work with. Once those stories existed, a Variety piece did not land as an isolated shot. It landed like confirmation that skepticism had crossed into the mainstream of the entertainment industry itself. That is why this moment feels different from the older rounds of backlash. Before, Harry and Meghan could argue they were being attacked by institutions they had already framed as hostile. Now the unease is showing up in the very world they chose as their second act. Not royal protocol, not Fleet Street, Hollywood. The place where they were supposed to convert fame into durable influence. And that is a much tougher problem to manage because this business runs on belief. Belief that you can deliver, belief that partnering with you is worth the friction, belief that your next move will be clearer than your last one. Right now, that belief looks shaky. None of this means every insider claim is true. It does not mean every criticism is fair. And it does not mean Harry and Meghan are finished in Hollywood. But it does suggest something more serious than one bad press cycle. The story around them is no longer being written only by obvious opponents. It is being shaped by publications, executives, and insiders from within the industry they spent years trying to join. That is the real danger here. Because once the issue becomes credibility inside the room, not just image outside it, recovery gets much harder. You are no longer fighting a headline. You are fighting a mood. And moods in Hollywood can be brutal. So the big question is not whether Harry and Meghan can deny one allegation or threaten one publication with legal pushback. It is whether they can reverse a larger perception that has been building for years. Huge launch, constant attention, very uneven results. That was manageable when the story still felt aspirational. It looks very different when even Hollywood starts wondering whether the promise has already peaked. What makes this story land so hard is that it was never just about deals, headlines, or prestige. It was about control of image, control of narrative, control of how every setback gets explained away. But once the doubt starts coming from inside Hollywood itself, that formula stops working. At that point, the issue is not bad press. It is credibility. And that is a much harder thing to rebuild. Because in the end, Hollywood will tolerate ego, chaos, and even controversy, but only when the results justify it. When the output stays uneven, the excuses get weaker, the allies get quieter, and the image starts slipping faster than anyone wants to admit. That is where this saga sits now. Not at the height of the brand, but at the moment where people are starting to ask whether the promise was ever as solid as it looked. And that is why this story is not over. It is entering the part where perception hardens into reputation. So now the real question is not whether Harry and Meghan can answer the criticism. It is whether they can prove the Hollywood version of their future still exists at all. For more breakdowns like this, where the headlines end and the real story begins, keep it locked to BarzBuzz. If this saga had you shook, wait till you see what's next. You already know what it is. BarzBuzz got the real, raw, and unfiltered breakdowns. So don't forget to like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this with someone who needs to catch up.